What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing. I just finished up watching Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, and this was an 8-rounder in the Cruiserweight division. And this fight was Sunday, February 26th from the Diriyah Arena in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia. And this fight was broadcasted on ESPN pay-per-view. And in this fight, Tommy Fury was able to hand Jake Paul his first ever defeat, defeating him by split decision. So I personally scored this bout 75-74 in favor of Tommy Fury. The three judges had this bout 76-73 twice in favor of Fury and 75-74 in favor of Jake Paul once. So if you did watch this fight, comment down below how you scored it. I would imagine it's anywhere from like 76-73, 75-74, either way, like anything like that. It's like 76-73 for Fury or 75-74 either way, something like that. So this fight definitely exposed a lot of things. Jake Paul performed better than I thought, even though I predicted a close win on points for Fury. Jake Paul, he did much better taking the punches than I thought he would, and he was able to land some nice shots on Fury, and he was able to drop him in this fight. But this definitely does show that Tommy Fury does not have that real fighting blood in him like his brother, Tyson Fury, who's one of the best in the world right now. I think we all knew that already. But just to break this fight down round by round, the first round was a round that I did give to Tommy Fury. It was a very close round, actually. Jake Paul landed a big right hand over the top, but Tommy Fury had better work overall, and he was more active as well. Then in the second round, I also gave it to Tommy Fury. He was better on the outside, landing some big jabs on Jake Paul, making his hair and sweat fly back off him. It was a good round for Tommy Fury. Then in round number 3, Jake Paul did much better in this round. He was much more active. He was landing some very nice hooks and up jabs on Tommy Fury and won that round clearly. Then in round number 4, I gave it to Tommy Fury. Fury had nice combinations. He was doing more. Jake Paul had little decent combinations in that round, but I still thought that Tommy Fury had the better work overall. Then in the 5th round, this was a very interesting round. Jake Paul just out of nowhere was deducted a point for landing shots behind the head, even though both of them were doing it. And the referee has to really take this in consideration when he's scoring or when he's reffing these fights. Both Jake Paul and Tommy Fury aren't the most experienced of fighters, so it was kind of ridiculous for the referee to deduct a point like that just out of nowhere. So he deducted a point from Jake Paul in that 5th round for shots behind the head, but still in that 5th round, I gave it a 9-9 because I thought that Jake Paul had the better work and was much more aggressive than Tommy Fury. Then around number 6, it was also a 9-9 round, but in this round, Tommy Fury was deducted a point for holding, and it was also very odd because Tommy Fury wasn't really the one bringing about these clinches. It was primarily Jake Paul the one clinching Tommy Fury. So it was just very odd how the referee was handling it, and he deducted a point from Fury in that round, and it was similar to the last round in the 5th when Jake Paul won it, even though he got deducted a point. Like in this case, I thought that Tommy Fury won that 6th round and did better, but still was deducted a point, so it was a 9-9. Then in round number 7, this was a round I gave to Tommy Fury. I thought that he had much bigger shots than Jake Paul. There was a headbutt that caused an abrasion on the eye of Tommy Fury, like the left eye a bit, I think it was. Unless it was around like his cheek area, but it was a little bit swollen, but it was still a good round for Fury nonetheless. Did better work. Then in the 8th round, this was very interesting. Jake Paul landed a stiff jab on Tommy Fury that knocked him back down to the canvas, and that was scored as a knockdown. And some people were saying it was a slip. Definitely that could have been a factor into it. He definitely could have slipped on the canvas, but still a flush shot was landed, and the referee has to make that discretion and call it a knockdown. If a flush shot was landed and the fighter goes down, it's a knockdown. Even if the fighter slipped a little bit, but a punch was still landed clean, so it's a knockdown. But yeah, in total that adds up to my scorecard of 75-74 for Tommy Fury. Like I said before, comment down below how you did score it. But this goes in the question, what is next for Tommy Fury? So this was a split decision win for Fury. I believe he is now 9-0. We could definitely see from this fight, I don't really think he's going to go far in the pro ranks. to be 100% honest. I mean, he wasn't even looking that great against low level, like, stiff opponents that are so called bums in the sport of boxing, or journeymen, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, this fight, I mean, even though Jake Paul has been training for 5-6 years in boxing, I mean, that's only 5 to 6 years in the sport. Tommy Fury's supposedly been in the sport since he was a kid, and for him to just barely get by and get dropped by someone who was a YouTuber and on Disney channels like 8 years ago, I mean, it's just not a good look for him. So yeah, I mean, Tommy Fury, what's next for him? Like I said, they could definitely have the rematch. I mean, they did say this on the broadcast that Tommy Fury, if he does win this fight, Jake Paul does have a rematch clause that he could enact. So we could definitely see a rematch clause, the rematch clause play into effect, and we could definitely see a rematch between these two in the near future. But that's most likely next. I mean, if not for a rematch, I really don't know what could be next for Tommy Fury if he wants to really go back to just fighting on these like Queensberry cards on ESPN and really building himself back up in the actual pro ranks, or if he wants to continue on fighting for these big money fights, Saudi Arabia pay-per-view, all this against fighters who really just bring in a big draw like Jake Paul himself. But yeah, most likely it's probably going to be a rematch. But as for Jake Paul, like I said, I mean, what's next for him? Probably the rematch. He'll probably enact the rematch clause because he probably thinks he won this fight. And since he can, I mean, I definitely think that he will. But if not for Jake Paul, if he's not going to rematch Tommy Fury, who knows? He could get a crap load of money to fight KSI on like his own pay-per-view or something like that. Like, that's probably what's going to happen next if he doesn't get the rematch or if he doesn't enact the rematch clause against Tommy Fury, because I mean, any fight with Jake Paul nowadays is just big money on like Showtime pay-per-view, the Zone pay-per-view, ESPN pay-per-view like this was. I mean, any of it is definitely going to be a big draw and viewership as well. So overall, Tommy Fury battles back from a knockdown in the last round to ultimately defeat Jake Paul by split decision, and to hand him his first ever defeat as a pro. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.